Well, on Independence Day, a hearty message from Sarah Palin. Palin saying, "Happy 4th of July, America. Never forget what Thomas Jefferson called the spirit of 1776, a sentiment rooted in the abiding belief that all men are created equal and desire freedom." Reagan invoked that same spirit in his famous speech, A Time for Choosing. Palin also quoted Ron Paul, saying on Independence Day, "We should remember the spirit of rebellion against tyranny that inspired our founding fathers to set out our experiment in liberty. We should ourselves celebrate and continue that struggle if we are to keep our republic." To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page and follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA. Now it's time to strap in with the Colonel. Here's our friend Colonel Rob Maness.
Thanks, Kevin. Happy Independence Day to you and your listeners. This was the first Independence Day I was able to spend in my hometown, celebrating our independence from oppressive government due to my Air Force assignments from the time I was 17 years old. This week, we released my contract with Louisiana. This was a 12-point pledge and is a commitment by me to always be accountable to the people I serve. My pledge is to serve the people of Louisiana by defending the Constitution, visiting every parish in the state every year, spending less taxpayer money on my Senate staff than allotted, and emblazoning the great state of Louisiana on the door to our office instead of my name. I'll institute an open-door policy for Louisianans. When you come to see me, you'll have priority over the lobbyists. As we celebrate our nation's 238th birthday, these pledges remind me of a time when the people's representatives themselves gathered in Philadelphia to conduct the people's business. They themselves developed the language of the Declaration of Independence. They themselves governed during the Revolutionary War, and they themselves spent the sweltering summer of 1787 drafting the Constitution that would bind us together as one people and one nation. They were citizen legislators. They were each one of us. My opponents, Congressman Cassidy and Senator Landrieu, are not. They both enjoy the support of the political establishment. They raise money from lobbyists on the Washington, D.C. cocktail circuit, and they have supported legislation that favors the elite, like the $192 billion stimulus and the Export-Import Bank. That's why I need your support. Visit us online to volunteer or to donate at www.robmaness.com and listen for Governor Palin's new radio ad supporting our campaign that will begin airing this week in Louisiana. Or you can find it online by searching Maness Drain the Swamp. This is retired Colonel Rob Maness with Mama Grizzly Radio.
Join us again next time for another segment of Strap In with the Colonel featuring Rob Maness on Mama Grizzly Radio. For more on Colonel Maness, head to robmaness.com. That's ROBMANESS.com.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hey, Susan, how you doing?
Kevin, I'm doing great as we are celebrating the week of Independence Day and the week after it.
Well, I know there are some surveys that have come out recently, one in particular that you want to talk about. I want to bring one up as well, but one you want to talk about that may not be a cause for celebration for some people.
Yes, we're seeing a trend of when we're doing surveys with Americans that, increasingly over the years, but it's been quite accelerated over the last few years, the dissatisfaction with what we perceive as, our freedoms. And in 2006, 91% of those surveyed felt satisfied with their freedoms in the United States. But if you fast forward to 2013, it's down to just 79% of Americans that were surveyed felt satisfied with their freedoms. So there's a huge jump in the percentage of people that are very concerned about their liberties and what is happening in America. And you're also seeing a trend of concern of Americans in their elected leaders. They are concerned that there is corruption. And so I think that, the two can be linked.
I mean, that's not that big of a period of time, just a few years like that, for things to go downhill so much. And you say, what is different? Well, that is what's different. The policies that are being thrown the way of the American people. Another poll that came out ranked President Obama as the worst president since World War II. And this wasn't publicized just in conservative outlets. This was out there everywhere. I believe it was a Quinnipiac poll. So, I mean, it's something that people rely on and trust from both sides of the aisle very often and use in elections a lot of times. Here, he was right at the bottom. So, I mean, this is something where finally, maybe the majority is catching up on what's been going on here for the last few years.
He did promise that he would fundamentally change the way things are done in America. And I would say that even with the pushback that we've seen in some of the Supreme Court decisions, there were 4 of them that 2 of those decisions were unanimous, that the president had overstepped his authority of the executive branch in some of the decisions that he's making. Even with those pushbacks, I think the damage that he has done to our overall perception and then our overall freedom in America, it's going to be difficult really to overcome it. I do think, though, that there is an antidote to it, and I think that you're seeing it throughout the nation, no matter how they want to spin it, in the newspapers, on the radio, that the establishment has won and the so-called Tea Party has lost. I think what we're seeing is not a Tea Party battle, but it really is a battle of just your average American that recognizes that something's not right, that it's not matching up, what these elected officials are promising us and then what's actually happening. And I do believe that just by having just a few people in each of these houses of government that are willing to, no matter what, just fight for transparency and fight for integrity in the system, I do think that can make a big difference because it puts pressure on the other elected officials to also do the same.
Yeah, and anyone who wants to talk about the establishment winning over those common-sense conservatives, well, you could just look no further than Mississippi to see what they have to do to win and have people paid and have Democrats vote for someone they're not going to support in November and all of that craziness. So we will certainly keep an eye on all of this. And, unconfirmed, but Jimmy Carter having a peanut party after this poll came out that Obama now is, taken over as the worst president in people's minds.
Well, unfortunately for America, that is the situation that we're in. But I do have hope in the American people that we will be able to turn this around and hopefully elect a strong candidate in 2016 for president.
Absolutely, and try to keep that Supreme Court out of the hands of the Democrats, too, until they can move into the White House. Susan Stimson, thanks so much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. Periodically, I like to check out what kids today are really thinking about. So I asked my 19-year-old son what he was worried about. He said, everything. So I asked him what his friends are worried about, and he said their next post on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. That's why he's worried. He says his friends really don't know what's going on in current events, nor do they care. And if they do care, they say there's nothing they can do about it. He tells me that they think someone else will take care of it. My son knows that it is his responsibility to take care of our country and preserve our freedom. He knows that it is within his power to do so. He has learned that from me and his dad and our family. The problem is that our schools don't teach any civic responsibility. Oh, sure, our schools teach American government and some history, but most of it is revised history. We don't teach our kids the meaning of the Constitution and where their rights come from. We don't teach kids about economics and free markets anymore. Let's face it, if they don't learn it at home, they simply aren't learning it. Our generation must take responsibility for this before it's too late. My son said he's worried we won't have the same country 10 years from now that we have today. Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It has to be fought for and defended by each generation. We best get busy. We have a lot of work to do. This is Sarah Steelman from Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Strappin' with the Colonel, Commonwealth Common Sense, and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook. And follow on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Rob Manus, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, Rob Manus, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Darius Foster, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.